So this is my last day in the hotel. No, sorry, tomorrow is the last day in the hotel that is the Dundee regime. It's in Strathmore Avenue, which is the iconic naming of the richest places in Dundee, and there at long last is a seal, and it looks like a kid, a baby. First time I've seen one since I returned. The moon is almost full, and all of it is absolutely amazing. The people have all of a sudden become friendly. Even Princess Anne was talking to me in the hotel last night with another in the Italian grill with another member of the committee of 300. All of them are in a state of panic because of the Star Wars issues and the sudden deaths, and the man that was in the Italian grill with Princess Anne last night. I forget what his name is on the committee of 300, but he's a distiller, and he lost his wife with a cancer just a couple of years ago. Yeah, and all of it is the whole of the declaration that Theresa May was mind control trained at Tavistock after she had been born by siring using Hitler Rothschild's semen. Yeah, and all of that is proclaimed on the German Tavistock website that now has been altered, but all of the images I have captured tell you that it is Hitler's line of descent, and that it is the women that are Gubescheit, or whatever her name is, she's the president in Lithuania, and that is where the representatives for Lithuania on the committee of 300 were the two Miliband brothers, and they've been booted off as false socialists, and that typifies the state of the nation. And I believe now that the sun god is giving them massive complex conscience complexes rather, and this is the legendary place where the Tay Bridge collapsed, and all of that, even although the people of Dundee don't seem to appreciate it, is the division of every town and city into the world into elite families that are the plebs are the poor ones, and they are the ones that had the bridge collapse under them. And all of the family listings and the poem that comes from McGonagall is absolutely typical of how the aristocratic families run their lives as the butchers of the poor. Yeah, and there's the art galleries and everything that we have now, and behind it is the ship for the polar explorers that cover the launch of the religious mania. That is Titus Oates, is the name of a Protestant activist in London in the earliest days, in the lead up or just after the launch of the Glorious Revolution. And all of those people that are in a panic are out of the orange families now, and that is the massive steal that all of them have become the bosses in Lithuania, they've become the bosses in Yugoslavia, they've become the bosses in the Netherlands, they've become the bosses in the Luxembourg countries and Belgium, and the whole of the European Union thing is just a massive diversionary tactic, and Brexit is the launch again of the baby Jesus joke. That is the braying donkey that was Jesus on Palm Sunday, and the X in the middle is the signature on his birth certificate, because he never ever lived. That is the Italian donkey that is Jesus, born and raised in the Villa Papyri as a mythical scam that is the biggest cause of death in world history. Okay, and now it's the 19th of December today, and we're now entering the the shortest days in the calendar year, and that's why I've come to the shores of the legendary Tay River. Yeah, and up there you have the massive massacres in the tributaries sometimes, but that is the massacres of the Covenanters' Wars, and all of the rabid right through after the launch of the Shin and the crowning of both William and Mary as absolute monarchs, who favoured the Protestant side. For 100 years the Parliament in London, with a token Scottish presence, would not allow Catholics to vote in the elections, and all the massive wars were fought amongst the clans, and William sent letters to the clans, and that is the legendary massacre at Glencoe of the MacDonald family by the Campbells, because the MacDonalds did not get their reply to "we agree to a United Kingdom," and the deposition, the deposing of the Scottish king, who's actually the cousin of William of Orange, and all of them are inbred cousins. And then you've got the 7 clerics, all of it is Freemasonic numbers, and just as they booted me out of my safe house and I got a lift to my hotel, the man was ranting away, counting up the numbers, and all of it is the meaning of life for the world's Masons. Yeah, that is the brother-in-law of Graham Forbes, and they're supposed to be coming back around about this time, and we've had storms predicted for this week, but they've never actually appeared. So there is Broughty Ferry and the richest places, and that's where I've made the earlier videos on the Tay River Valley, and that is where the Carnegies launched the railway empire, and across there is the Kingdom of Fife, and that is the massive joke that in Falkland, that is the place where the kings and queens that could have been claimants had not William of Orange and his political regimes absolutely massacred the concept that you could ever again have a Queen of Scotland or a King of Scotland, even although they were the legitimate bloodline for several centuries before the Shin occurred. And that is, I like to know it now as the Glorious Revolution, because when you look that up on the internet, there is much more information. Only Greg Hallett's posthumous contribution remains on the Shin. Yeah, which is why it's so difficult to find it. And yeah, everything is the same joke. Yeah, the letter T, the polar stars, and that is the period when we have the 3 shortest days in the year. That is the transitional period, and the rotation of the sun's orientation to the earth changes in that 3-day period, and all of that is in those videos that are Sun God, Son of God videos by the people that are the American humorists, but they have got the facts on the ISIS myths right through world history. And I'm going to move away because we've got excited chatter just like we had at Broughty Ferry. So the sun is now shining from the Loch Leven part of the world that I love so much, and I don't know whether or not that is a piss take too, but there's an island there called the Scherf, and that is the name of the Bush family as they diasporaed around the world as fascists to take over the whole of the world by profiteering in the wartime, and by taking their place first as the leaders of the CIA that massacred the people in the quest for military government in Latin America, which is now totally owned by the English speaking world. Yeah, that's Pinochet's time in power there, and that is Pinochet who left Colombia. Yeah, that is the joke, that Colombia, the Vatican City and the City of London are the three hubs for that Committee of 300, and it's got all sorts of other names. They are called the Knights of Malta, and all of those sad bastards that are on that committee, yeah, including 12 British royals. Fergie's the only one who's had to take the fall. Yeah, yeah. And when I discovered that Theresa May and 20 or 30 other kids had been inseminated with Hitler's semen on that German website, it was absolutely stunning, and the government have been incapable of talking about anything else for years and years and years. And the irony of the man being in charge of the Brexit stuff, he is David Davis, and he is the Secretary of State and Cabinet Member for Brexit. Do you get it? The braying Italian donkey that is Jesus. Same joke as Delano Roosevelt, that is Delaney's donkey. Yeah, and those are all the Selkirk families that originated from the Scottish borders, where I've been exiled from. Oh, and they've got the heating on at full pelt on the hotel behind us. So it's not quite a full moon, yeah, and that is all the pagan worshippers have lost now, because none of them are left alive, thanks to the Charlemagne Prize winners that include Nick Clegg. I don't know why he's picked for greatness, but my wife used to receive letters from her cousin in Australia in Rio Tinto's Perth. Yeah, all of it is the same joke. That's the Pi PE Perth that is just up the Tay River Valley too. Yeah, and this is the first time that I've seen a seal, and I've not yet seen a dolphin on the estuary. And we've got an ordinary working man's rowing team coming upstream as fast as they possibly can. So just a few more sunsets before the shortest day is reached. I think it's the 21st or the 20th is the shortest day in the year. And I don't think the sun god needs propping up. He's quite competent and capable, and now that's why they're all so fearful in the Star Wars team. And I think I've now found a new safe house, but I don't want to reveal anything about that until it all gets done, in case my new host gets brutalized or bullied, and that is going to happen in 2 days now. So, all of those religious wars involve the Covenanters, the Episcopalians, yeah, the Lutherans. Everything across Europe is rabid and balanced, one denomination against the next. And I was quite stunned when I learned that Dundee is the epicenter for it, because one of the leading, I can't remember whether he was a Covenanter or a Jacobite, and all of them are fighting against the English redcoats, yeah, and then the coalitions with France occur later in the Shin period between 1715 and 1689. Yeah, that is when the Glorious Revolution was launched. And all the families that are in the Seven are famous. One of them is the Muppet that is Lumley, yeah, and all of it has become a massive comedy. Lumley is the actress in the blonde comedies. Yeah, desperately sad that that is what has happened, and everything on the telly has now been trivialized, because the whole of the world's operation is owned by the same families. And if you have intellectuals like me that are prepared to get up and speak and physically look after themselves, then they panic. And Princess Anne's body double was quite nice last night. Yeah, she's the one that wants the numbers down, and all of that is the same as the crashing of that bridge, with the poor plebeian families drowning in the estuary, as the lyrics of the poem are jocular and laughing at them, because they know that then they had the power to do it. And that's why Lord Condon and all the terror that he's been in charge of as its law enforcer, yeah, they're all in the same syndicate. He is descended from a papal bloodline, and that is the same for many of the elite families, including the Rainiers of Monaco. All of them were in the papacy. Yeah, and that is Al Pacino, and that is the earliest popes, and that is the biggest disclosure that I've ever made in my history as an activist. And all of the world now knows that Christopher Martin is descended from Flavius Josephus of the busy bees of Rome that were the launch of the Titus that was the emperor. And that's why through world history we have a whole series of Tituses to cover the history of that Flavian dynasty and those busy bees. Yeah, that's the avian hat, is the beekeeper's hat that every pope has used since the Flavians stole the whole of the religious world and controlled its masses by writing the Bible as Jews. Yeah, and I'm going to keep going till the sun says cheerio for one of the shortest days in the year. So that is Fife across there. Falkland Palace is the resident. It was owned by the Duffs and that is the joke. And the Duffs were in my hometown. I used to play bowls with them, and he died really, really young, and that is the Duffers that are the claimants to the Scottish throne after the Glorious Revolution has declared that no one, unless you're in the Orange Syndicate, is allowed to become a king and queen in Scotland again, because Scotland is just going to be subsidiarised into the United Kingdom. And that is the launch in the elite buildings that they use of entertainment and artistry, and the entertainment is tennis, and the other part of it in those days back in the 17th century is cockfighting. Yeah, and all of those facilities were in the parliamentary buildings, and that is just so that the Muppets in them before and since are able to spend their life at play and being bigots. Yeah, and the same parties that launched all of that massive stuff where Catholics could not vote for 100 years. Yeah, and that is the evil Catholic bloodlines bullying themselves into submission so that we have only got the right of Protestants to be the kings and queens. Yeah, and in Luxembourg and all of those places the Frieso families appear. Yeah, all of them are descended from Saxe-Coburg and the families that have been in charge since the Hamburg families who launched the banks. That is the Berenberg Bank in Hanover, and that is the families that include the Goslings that are their icon, the geese, are actually on the Bank of England logo when it was open and run by William Patterson, and that's way before they actually declare the opening of the Bank of England. And the interests that were returned for the first loans by the government, loans to the government by William Patterson's Bank of England, were 1,250%. Yeah, and that is money for nothing, and the whole of the Freemasonic movement are in charge of all of those scams, and that is the launch of the genius that was Isaac Newton, but is a chief master mason running the country and the stealing of the world from all of the Masonic lands. And that is the launch of Freemasonry in Germany by Weishaupt, and eventually by the families that went to America, yeah, in the deals to create the Federal Reserve Bank. And that happened in this Christmas period in America, when only 3 senators showed up with Woodrow Wilson, who he and his wife are close relatives of Queen Victoria. It's absolutely tragic, and the whole of America has been run by Britannia ever since, and all the taxes that the Americans pay are due to that coalition between the Vatican in Rome. Do you get it? That is the people that are not allowed to vote, that are the worshippers of the Vatican leadership team, because that Vatican leadership team are the Bible authors, and they named themselves as Arius Piso, the Father God. Yeah, do you get it? And that is the folk that are not allowed to be the queens, because they pretend that everything is a moral statement, and that if you're a Catholic, you do not deserve, because you were plotting in the Orange movement to assassinate the king, who was King Charles I, who's the first man to grow a Piso pineapple in Britain. Yeah, and that is the launch of those 7 elite families, including the buffoons. I forget what they are, but look up the Glorious 7, and this, yeah, that could be a Nazi plane. All of them are still descended from the Hitler Rothschild semen samples, and that is what has shaken Theresa May's life so much in the last fortnight. Yeah, it was completely stunning to see them, and they had the temerity to send in the body doubles for all 25 of those tiny young girls and boys that were being mind controlled in Tavistock after they had been sired by umpteen different women using Hitler Rothschild's semen samples. Yeah, and my inspirational presence for the whole of the global pagans right through world history and the human race's existence in it. He's now dipped behind the cloud, yeah, and it takes the form, at the front of the cloud takes the form of the dragon that is the joke that he has been replaced, the sun god Sol Natalus Invictus has been replaced by the dragon that is the baby Jesus, and that is Arius Piso's last chapter, number 66 in the Bible. Yeah, and that is the baby Jesus is named as the dragon, and that is the Dragon's Den school, and that is the Dragon's Den on the telly, yeah, laughing at Britain Has Got Talent as they mock the deaths of every pagan in the world and every Christian in the cross-denominational wars right through the history of that world. Yeah, and it's almost the full moon. So do you get that? That is, the Dragon's Den is a school in the Oxford, and that is where all the elite families are trained. That is Cressida Dick, the head of the Metropolitan Police. She attended the Dragon School with umpteen members of the Queen of England's administration in the same school. Hugh Laurie was at that school. That is the actor that plays Bertie Wooster. Aung San Suu Kyi, the political presence from Burma, also attended that school, and all of them are political activists, and she was allowed to walk through the Houses of Parliament that were able to assassinate the kings by beheading because they wanted rid of the Catholics. Yeah, and it's the whole of that fucking religion that was launched by the Catholics. And right up to 2015, we've never allowed a monarch to be Catholic since that happened, or to marry one. And that is the year that the sad bastards sectioned me. Yeah, and that is the year that they changed the laws of succession, because they're compromised now. So, nearly gone. I hope the little seal is capable of swimming. They're mammals too, do you get it? And this was a massive whaling place. But I think we'll stop now, because we've arrived at the Austrian Master Race Hub, that is Tesco's. Yeah, and all of my most telling videos, that is Tesco, that is Todesco, of the Austrian nobles, war criminals at the end of World War I. Yeah, that is Rothschild, Todesco, Arniston, and that is Jennifer Aniston in the false Bible story. And in my safe hotel at the moment, which is one of the poorest hotel chains in the world, but when you get your bed and breakfast there and you pay for bed and breakfast, there is no breakfast in the deal. You have to pay another £8 for it. Yeah. And you get it. That is Warren Buffett's Tesco. Warren Buffett is still number 4 on the Forbes rich list, and Bill Gates has now dropped off it because he's scared now of my knowledge of the families that are the PISOs. Yeah, so one of the nicknames was Polo. One of the nicknames was Polo. And sorry, it's still beautiful. Just a tiny little ringlet now of light. And that is not from Saul, the first king in the Bible. Yeah, just a massive pisty. So let me tell you some more. So Donald Trump's family were admirals in Holland, and they trained the people that came with the Glorious Revolution to Torbay in Devon, which you now know, all of you know, is heaven in the false biblical story. And Donald's family are from the Palatinate, and he's right up close. When I looked up his hometown in the Palatinate, I found that it was Fulda, and that is the monastery for St Boniface, who cut down Thors OAK and replaced it by the Christmas tree that we're celebrating in just a few days. Yeah, that's Fulda is their hometown, and that is the monastery for the man that is St Boniface, and the naming of Bonifacio. And last night when I was looking for all of the slaving links to bringing the slaves out of Africa and out of Latin America and putting them into chains all over the world, yet some of those were the pirates of North Africa, and that is the Barbaro. I forget what the name of the piratical dynasty was, but their earliest leaders were also Bonos. Yeah, that is the Surinam and all the places all across the African continent that have had their slaves stolen in an opportunistic way by armed fleets that take them away in chains and enslave them. And in Holland, that is the massive launch of the Maroon movement, and I remember being completely touched by that. Even the white man gets enslaved. Yeah, if you're powerful enough to kill your neighbours and you have more weaponry than them, you have the right to enslave them, and all of that is passed by those crooked parliaments that declare that they do not want to have Catholics as rivals for another few hundred years, and all of that is the seesaw joke for the PISO family. Yeah, that is religious division and the seesaw replacement of one denomination by another, and the more murderous you are, the more power you have. So the sun's gone and there's just an orange glow, and that's quite sinister at the end of that story I've just told you. So I'll sign off now. So the Trumps are related to the Committee of 300. That is the Heinz families that are the emperors of Austro-Hungary, I think. Yeah, they're tiny little people, and that is the relatives of Donald Trump right at the top of his family tree, from that Fulda place. Yeah, but before then they were Dutch, and that is the Trumps that trained the admirals that brought William and Mary's fleets to Torbay, and to create the mythology that is heaven in Devon. I think we should stop now because Tesco's is getting loads of traffic, and that is the colonial jokes that Suriname and all of it traded in rubber, potatoes, yeah, and coffee and tea. Yeah, that is the colonial interests that the parliamentarians are desperately keen to cling to. Okay, rubber plantations, everything that you make your money from, all of the labour comes from slavery, and then when the tractor is invented, we need World War I. Yeah, do you get it? And that is for the Piso family and all of his nicknames, the launch of the tanks into the militias, and that is the Panthera Panzer regiments for Arius Piso. Yeah, never seen so many planes in Dundee before. Maybe Princess Anne is abdicating. So, that is Jennifer Arnstein. Yeah, and in my hotel, the bath is made by Ariston. Yeah, and the lift has the word Piso in it, and on it goes. Okay, so there is the residual orange glow above Loch Leven, where Queen Mary was demonised as being a bitchy queen, and all of that is the Wikipedia profile that I read yesterday, and she lost her head just because she was born into that Catholic family. Okay, signing off. Auf Wiedersehen, pet. All of it is the same story. Yeah, that is the Germans that went, that is the German brick manufacturer who made Hadrian's Walls bricks, and he's from the Palatinate in Germany like everybody else in this team, and that's why the Auf Wiedersehen pet team, they went to Mannheim in Germany, which is where I did my pharmaceutical consultancy, but MAN is the name that has been given to Arius Calpurnius Piso. He's the man in world history. Yeah? And that is the songs by Dixon and her colleague. Try to understand the man. I know him so well. And that is the naming of the companies. Yeah, and the resignation yesterday of the Man United manager, and he gets, I think he gets 16 million as his payoff for that, and that is the code number for that is the code number for the Vestal Virgins and the pie that is the American pie right through world history, and that is not a pie like you get in their drinking clubs in London, but that is the pie that is the female vagina, which translates to Piso when you take it into English out of Latin. Yeah, and Italian, and the Brexit joke, and all of it is absolutely childish, and we need to grow up, and I think Princess Anne might have realised that now. Yeah, luckily she did not have her horse or the cavalry with her. Okay, signing off. And that is Loch Leven, where the Sheriff Island was the last pagan place in Scotland. Yeah, they were sun god worshippers in that place, but the gods are now telling me that that is also a Piso fairy tale. Yeah, and all of the places around it are rosy red Rothschild name-alikes, and that is Loch Leven, where Queen Mary was kept before she was sent down to Fotheringay and then beheaded from that place. Yeah, all of it in the name of the dogma of the God who was never ever on this earth, which is why the X is in the middle of Brexit. Okay, signing off.